First of all, I feel compelled to apologize to bank staff because Ryan basically told you if you want a Christmas gathering this year, you're going to have to listen to Estes talk. For those that maybe don't know me too well, anyone that does will tell you nobody likes to hear me talk more than me. If you are here, it's because you have impacted my life, and I think I can speak for Julie as well, in a meaningful and positive way. Of course, since doing this via video, I have no clue who is here, if anyone's left. Hopefully I have some bank staff and hopefully my family is still here. But we invited coworkers, past and present, directors, past and present, clients, close friends, coffee shop buddies, and of course family. So whoever happens to still be here, I truly thank you for coming to help Jewel and me commemorate our time with Fisher National. When Ryan told me the bank wanted to have a recognition celebration for 50 years, full disclosure, it's actually a couple months shy of that, but we wanted to do this here at Pear Tree with two of our favorite clients, Lauren and Annie. Due to their tremendous success, it's kind of tough to get in this place, so we had to move the date up slightly. But I started thinking about how I got here, and I wanted to share with those present, brief recap, tell a couple stories, maybe a humorous quip or two, or at least I think they're humorous. I'll let you be the judge. And I have some thank yous to say. I'm not sure I can make 50 years brief. No promises, but I'll try to be as brief as I can. You might ask why a video. A couple of reasons. I've found my spontaneous remarks are much better when they are prepared. Secondly, for those that know me well, you are aware that when speaking of things very meaningful to me, it causes my heart to fill up, which in turn runs out my eyes. I named this condition cardiac retinal hydration, or CRHY. So I thought I may be able to control this condition a little better via video rather than in person, so we'll see. So I'll have to say I don't really think I chose community banking as a career, but it chose me. When I was a kid, I wanted to be Roy Rogers, then Mickey Mantle, then Pete Maravich. One day I was presented with another idea of what I could do once I graduated high school from a man who turned out to be my first boss, Chuck Brownlee. Probably many of you in here knew Chuck. I got to know him hanging around with his son Mike and many times in their basement playing pool and penny ante poker. Chuck was a small man in stature but had a huge personality, never met a stranger, and was a great guy to work for. He called me into his office one day the summer after I graduated, told me he was looking for a young man to train and groom to help him run the bank someday. He informed me of a 2-year program at Parkland College that when completed, I would have an associate degree in banking and a job waiting. Since I had pretty much abandoned the Roy Rogers, Mickey Mantle, and Pete Maravich career path, I thought this is the best I've been offered to this point, so decided why not. I started my career on a Friday evening, March 1975, at the shoulder of Joan Eshelman, watching her run a teller window. Joni was one of about half a dozen wonderful ladies that I had the honor and privilege of working with. Most had kids as old as I, or older, that many of them I'd gone to school with. Unfortunately, most of them are gone now, but one still lives here in Fisher and was invited, and I sure hope she's able to be here this evening. But if you are, thanks, Mary, for being there at the beginning and helping me get my career started. One story I wanted to share, I had only been at the bank a few months and was part-time while finishing up at Parkland. I worked every Friday night and a walk-up window on Saturday. And for those present that are not bankers, every day before you leave, you have to balance your drawer. One Saturday, I was $100 off. We counted and recounted and could not find it. My hope and prayer was Monday they would find it when they went through the rest of the work and found that I failed to make a ticket or a transaction was out of balance. I had classes on Monday, but as soon as I was done, I rushed back to the bank to see if they'd found my $100 shortage. But when I got back, they informed they had not found it, and I was just devastated. I thought, this is going to be the shortest banking career in history. I believe Chuck could see this on my face, how bad I felt, and that I was really beating myself up. He told me not to dwell on it, but to continue to think about my work on Saturday. Possibly something would come to me. He said this was part of the business. We're all human, and unfortunately, sometimes mistakes are made. And if we didn't find it, someday we'd shortchange a blind lady and we'd get that money back. So now that's not really politically correct, but Chuck said it, I did not. But as far as I know, we never did find that blind lady to shortchange. But I kept my career and my job and completed my associate degree at Parkland. And Chuck true to his word, put me on full-time as soon as I graduated. But after just a couple years, Chuck called me into his office again one day, but this time was to tell me he had another opportunity and he would be leaving the bank. So once again, I thought my career was going to be short-lived. A new guy would come in, want his own person to work with, and I'd be the odd man out. But when George Schutel was hired, while he had many years of banking experience and wisdom, did not have the local knowledge I did. So as it turned out, my fears and worries were unfounded, and my job career continued with Fisher National. So I'm not going to give you a year-by-year recap of 50 years. I doubt Lauren and Annie have enough liquor for all of you to sit through that, but I will just say as time went by, I continued to learn, wear whatever hat was asked of me, and assisted George with whatever I could in order to make myself as valuable to the bank as possible. I cannot thank George enough for allowing me to take on additional responsibilities, taking me with him to bank functions, maybe a golf outing or two, which allowed me to grow professionally and personally. I asked to go to banking school a couple times, and the board was always very supportive of this and allowed me to attend a couple different schools, many seminars over the years, and this too allowed me to grow both personally and professionally. Another quick story, as you become the banker in your community, a great deal of respect and adoration starts coming your way. One day a client came in my office and gave me a great example of the respect that I had earned. I wish I recall exactly how this conversation went, but the gist of it was the client informed me he had been working with his attorney regarding his end-of-life arrangements. And when his time came and he was at death's doorstep, he wanted his attorney to be there on one side, and he wanted also me to be there on the other side. I have to say I was very surprised by this request, but also very honored and humbled. And in my mind, I'm polishing my halo thinking I'm a special person to this guy. And while I wasn't sure exactly how he was going to time all this out, I said, if at all possible, I'd be honored to be there when your time comes. But could I ask why? He said he had decided when it was his time to go, he wanted to go just like Jesus between two thieves. Pause for laughter. So that's the kind of respect and adoration I normally receive from clients, executive team, and friends. But this has kept me humble, my feet on the ground. I'm truly thankful I've had people like that in my life. So in '96, George retired and I was named president and CEO, kind of the holy grail for a community bank officer. It was at that time I became involved with Community Bankers Association of Illinois. We had been members for many years, and while we utilized some of their services they provided, I really didn't know what all they offered and why we were paying the dues that they charged. So I asked to attend a convention to see if this was something we should continue. So the board allowed me. Deb and I went to a convention, which that year was in Nashville, and I drank the CBAI Kool-Aid. And this started me on my journey with Community Bankers Association of Illinois. After that convention, I wrote a letter to Bob Wingert, President and Executive of CBAI at that time, thanking him and his staff for making me feel welcome, how much I enjoyed the convention and learning more about CBAI. Sometime after that, I was asked to become involved in the board level, and to make a long story longer, this was provided opportunities that would never have happened without this involvement. Things like going to Washington, D.C. annually. Probably 15 plus years I've done this. You get to meet congressmen, legislators, senators. This involvement led to opportunities to be involved with ICBA, our national trade association, and serving as one of the state delegates for 6 years, and also being asked to serve on several ICBA committees, which I still am doing. I've had the privilege of attending meetings throughout the country in places I most likely would never have had the opportunity to travel to. I was part of a group that was invited to the White House to hear the President and Vice President speak. And have met with some great bankers who now I have the privilege of calling friends all across the country. The highlight of this involvement was being asked to serve as chairman of CBAI in 2010 and 11. I'm so appreciative that Bob Wingert and Mike Kelly saw something in me that I didn't see in myself and asked me to be a part of this organization. Side note, many years later at a convention, Mike Kelly and I ended up in a bar, and I told him about that letter I had written. And he told me that Bob had read that letter not only to him, but the entire staff. And he said, we need to get this guy involved. And while I did this as a way to give back to the profession that was providing me a career and feeding my kids, I have to say I have taken far more than I have given. These people that work with the current president, Craig Lounsbury and Mike Kelly, get up every day, go to work for me and community bankers across the state, and the people at ICBA that work with Rebecca Romero-Rainey do the same thing for community bankers across the nation. Those that are employed by CBAI and ICBA, and the bankers that volunteer their time, talent, and knowledge to these organizations, if there's any finer people, I have not met them. I doubt there's anyone here tonight from those organizations, but I thank them from the bottom of my heart, and I hope they know I love CBAI, ICBA, and the community bankers that I've had the honor and privilege of serving with. Some thank yous. I have had a board that has been so supportive and encouraging over the years, but there are two that have stuck with me or been stuck with me the longest. There are many times in the past 50 years when I needed picked up, word of encouragement, or maybe just an attaboy. And these two have always been there and had my back. I met Leonard Stocks that very first Friday evening that I started, and we have reminisced about that evening often. Leonard unfortunately retired from the board a few years ago, but he comes in regularly to visit and keep me in line. Steve Engel was like a big brother to me in school and invited me many times to campus when he got to U of I to hang out, and to be honest, was not a very good influence. That's not true. But Steve is still on the board, and I'm so glad that he is. But I can't thank you both enough for your support, encouragement, most important, your friendship. I always say nobody works for me, everybody works with me. I've been so fortunate over the years. I've had a tremendous group of coworkers. I want to mention those that are leading the charge for us right now. Jeff Favre in Vermilion County came to us with the Catland merger when we merged with them a few years ago, oversees our Catland, Georgetown, and recently opened Danville facility. Damien Spencer, he got us started in Champaign Market several years ago, which led us to building a beautiful facility on Staley Road. And Ryan Heiser joined us in 2006. He oversees not only Muhammad, but is leading the charge for the entire organization. And he's just doing a great job. He's so much better than the previous CEO. That wasn't a high bar, but anyway, I'm glad he's here. But I want to single out the ones that have been with me the longest, and again, maybe been stuck with me the longest. Eric came to us shortly after I was named CEO in '96. Side note, one of the ladies that helped train me when I was first hired was Eric's grandmother, Orlena. And I always thought it was somewhat fitting and cool that Eric chose to come to be part of the bank family that his grandma was a part of. Julie came on board in 1985, just like I did, started on the teller line, working her way up to be an integral part of the executive team. There's no one that works harder, is more dedicated, and is more reliable. Both Eric and Julie have always been there for me. I believe I've told them many times before their biggest weakness was they were trained by me, and sometimes we were all learning together. But in spite of that, while we were fortunate to have been provided a solid foundation by the founders of Fisher National, you both have helped me reinforce that foundation that Fisher National continues to build on. And I hope you're proud of the work you have done here, because I certainly am. I love you both, and I thank you for sticking with me. Bankers are big on titles and letters behind their name, and since I did not have a 4-year degree, I did not have a BS or an MS or certainly a PhD, my associate degree came with an ASS, so I chose not to use those letters. But before I wanted to be Roy or Mickey or Pete, there was always one goal I had as long as I could remember. And while I admit I certainly did want the title of CEO, those were not the letters that I dreamed of. And for a long, long time, I started to believe I would never accomplish this goal and get those letters. But lo and behold, in October '89, I got my letters. And again in April 1993, and again in April 1995. And that's when I could use the letters Dad. Those are my 3 greatest accomplishments. And I'm not sure if I've told them lately how proud I am of them. But I could not have achieved that goal, any of these accomplishments, without a partner. As it turns out, that was not an easy task for me. Not a surprise to those that know me well that I couldn't find somebody that wanted to spend time with me. But finally, a beautiful girl came into my life, and in a weak moment, she said, "I do." And we did, at least 3 times. She has been the glue that holds our home and our family together. I could not have been luckier and more thankful for the boy she has given me and the support and encouragement she has provided. I maybe should have started with this, but I guess the reason I always wanted to be a dad was because of the model I had. I was so blessed to have. Dad and Mom were never wealthy people, but the best thing they gave me was a work ethic. They led by example. And while they could never give us everything we wanted, they gave us everything we needed, which I think is more important. And Kennedy, what is it that Grandpa tells you now? You can't always get what you want, but if you try sometime, you might just find you get what you need. Unless you're dealing with a grandma, then you get what you want. Last and certainly not least, I've tried to lead my life and set the example to my boys based on my faith in God. One of my favorite Bible verses is in Joshua chapter 24. It's a story of Joshua talking to all his people and telling them that they have a choice to make. And he says, if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, then choose. You choose yourself. This day you choose. But as for me and my household, we serve the Lord. I have to admit, I failed miserably many days, but that was the goal and still is. Whatever modicum of success that I may have achieved in these 50 years, I thank God. I give Him the glory. So you may or may not have noticed on the invitation, this is an anniversary celebration and not a retirement, at least for me. My standard remark when asked, when are you going to retire, is community bankers never retire. We just lose interest. But the reality is just the opposite. When you work for a great organization, you're located in great communities, you're blessed to work with an unbelievable team, I will never lose interest. So probably until they change the locks on the doors, I'll continue to wander in there occasionally, but not if I have a tea time. I thank each and every one of you for being here this evening to help us to celebrate, and for more importantly, being a part of my life. You mean the world to me. Thank you. God bless you all.